Esports versus LFO. LFO still looking for organization. That's what the LFO stands for. Please sign them up. Come on, they're in the top 4. There's no way a team is actually in this spot. Kovana, are you watching? Come on, I see your tweet. G2 on the other side, they've won the LEC split. Can they actually win a game, though, here in the EU League?
It doesn't seem that way as long as they go off bank.
They've already won 2, Milos. What do you mean?
Nah, well, they've only won on bank. That doesn't count. Bank is not the map that counts. Had it been plain, I'd be fine with it. No, but they can win games, but it seems like there is some sort of, I don't know, weird innovativeness that they need to find, but they're finding it on the maps where they're kind of new, so everyone is just making stuff up.
Are they trying to change too much where it's not necessary?
I think that they're trying to change stuff on maps where you don't really need to change stuff because everyone plays it differently. For example, take Bank. Bank is a map where, for example, when you attack basement, we've praised them for their basement attacks. They have used O, so they've come from all different places. But the thing is, that sort of map allows you to do all those sorts of attacks. Because as soon as you clear out the roam game and you just go for hatches, you can breach all the hatches and then decide where you want to go. You don't need to kind of have a preset plan. But then as soon as we go off that map, we come into Oregon. They played innovative in defense, which turned out to be poor. Their attacks were the same. And then we move on, and they go to Clubhouse against Heroic, and their attack just seems to be lame. It's like they're missing something. I don't know. It's like a lame horse, you know? It's not up to full speed. But their defenses were fine, but just they're innovating the wrong things.
Fabian's imploding.
I'm triggered.
Can I contextualize this in terms of their losses, though?
Go ahead,
Have been
please
5-7 losses. The 2 losses they've had have been 5-7 losses. One round goes different in each of those games. They go into overtime. We're potentially talking about a G2 that's got 4 wins, but for 1 or 2 rounds. So it's only very small stuff between G2 being a middle of the table or a top of the table team that I will back their players to have the quality to fix.
Yep, they need to just show it on different maps, though, because you can't just have Bank that you win on, and then everything else you're going even against every other team. If you're trying to build a dynasty, dynasties needs to beat everyone on every map. That's just how it is. Know from experience. However, we have a head-to-head here for you guys with Mowgli and Doki. And it is a graphic in just a second. If
It'll go up. Give us some background on it. Give us some background on it. Why
it's actually about the anti-fraggers. It's
go.
about the anti-fraggers. We have Doki that they've picked up now from Navi, and he's supposed to do the hardcore anti-fragging, right?
True.
And he kind of is. And Mowgli, who is the new blood to LFO, he's also supposed to do the anti-fragging. I feel like they are used in a little bit different ways, though, Jack. Do you agree with me?
No.
You don't?
I don't.
All right.
And the reason that I don't, very quickly before you go into why you think they do, is Doki was the entry def for Heroic. They very clearly decided to target Doki, and we've seen how Mowgli will just run into sight in a 5v5. In my mind, both of them are true entry fraggers.
They are true entry fraggers. Don't get me wrong. I don't think that there's anything different in how they are as players. I do, however, think that they're used in different ways. I think that Mowgli is used as the first guy to go in every time, and you know he will do it. While anyone in G2 can kind of pick up a frag on the side, or anything like sort of that. They have a little bit more free fluid in it, but you can always expect Mowgli to go in first. And I think it's very impressive to have a new player that, sure, his KD ratio is still at his ±0 after 4 games. It's not great, but then again, who really cares? He's doing the job that he's assigned to do, and I'm really impressed by him.
Yeah, I think the way that his teammates speak about him especially, I know we've not had an interview from LFO for a couple of games now, but the way that his teammates speak about him, they hold him in high regard, they want to build up his confidence, and they think that he's going to be a mainstay in this roster and a very good player throughout the course of the year, not just in pockets of games.
Our map then for the series, I very much think it's going to be a very important one for it. 9-map pool, 8 are out, 1 is left, and we're going to go to Oregon again? Come on, dude. What's going on? Cafe Dostoyevsky, this is really setting a bad precedent for a day. Banned out by LFO is Cafe. We go to Oregon, where G2 start off on the defense. Jack, does it make sense?
G2 banning Bank doesn't make sense after we've just done a spiel about how it's their favourite map. Oregon, they struggled on it. So it's going to be about whether G2 can fix those wrongs. We said they were innovative on defense. I can't say that word. Innovative. Can they play default Oregon and win it against a team that will be aggressive?
I don't think that they can play default, and I don't think that they want to. I just want to see them play default defenses, and then from there, use the attacker repick. Use this ability of, you have the players for it. Throw in a Ying into the mix on this map too. Just use different characters. Like, Capitao is open, like all of these different things. You have the players for it. Let them run free on the steps. It's like wild horses. Just let them do their thing because they know what they're doing.
How will this Oregon compare to the one we just had?
I'm hoping it'll be less defender-sided. I want to see, I mean, both of these teams are experienced teams that know the map inside out, that have a little bit of substance about them. So I'm hoping we're seeing a few more attack wins, particularly on the kind of the primary sites.
Yeah, and that's where they need to use the operators I was talking about. Use the operators. I mean, just look at the backside push on basement. Use Ying on the meeting hatch. Throw Yings into sites. Throw Ying into pillar. There are multiple ways you can do it. Use Ying on big window when you're attacking top floor, or use it from trophy. Attack pit in attic with it. Just try
But
different
what if
things.
it's banned?
Well, then you don't use Ying, Milos. Have you ever thought about that?
God, finally, the one thing I've been missing out on.
Yeah, but there are more operators than
Use
Ying.
Blitz.
Use
Easy.
Blitz. No, okay, maybe not.
No, they
Blitz.
failed at it last time, remember?
But a Monty could help on something like that.
A Lamau.
A Lamau.
Hey, Lamau. It's because he didn't drop shot with the Blitz.
Okay, yeah, okay. We've
There's a
gone too
certain
far now.
ex-G2 player that goes by the name of Hungry that's been running around tournaments drop shotting people as Blitz and is very effective with it.
Well, on that note, please do not do that. Now that you've said it, Jack,
Yep.
if you come up against Fresh in ranked, drop shot him with Blitz.
Do you know who did come up against me in rank today?
Do you want to open up the can of worms?
Sure.
Because you were supposed to do that.
No.
Yeah, okay.
No, we
there
won't
you
do
go.
that.
Well, thank you very much. Fabian Fresh, we're going to toss it to our casters. It's Fluke that we love and adore, and he's actually going to cast too.
going
So
over that.
on his T1 debut for the 17th time, go ahead. Enjoy.
We don't love and adore him as much, though.
No, we just love him.
They love and adore him.
Sorry.
A respectable amount. It's all right. What headset are you going to use?
I'm going to this, and then when we go into the map, I'll change onto the other headset.
Hi, what's up? It's Fluke. Unfortunately, Hap is still ill. Send him your love. He is he's at home. He's also at bar 6. He's got a sore throat. He cannot talk. So we get Fresh. We get Fresh today, but Fresh is exciting.
Womp womp.
Well, that's me.
I'm getting booed
He's
by the
one of
desk.
yours.
We don't want him.
I've escaped the
don't
desk,
want him.
and now I'm being booed by them.
Yeah, well,
Fantastic.
this is the life of a caster. And we have the life of G2 versus LFO ahead of us. And I think there's a lot of expectation here because, well, there's a lot of expectation in G2's performance. That poll, I think, has a lot sort of going for it. It's biased in a bit of a swing towards G2 because on the sort of meat and potatoes of things, and I get to use all of these sayings now that wouldn't understand them, G2 haven't been playing as good as they could have been.
I think there's a lot of expectations on G2, just across the board of themselves, of the fans, of the organisation. As Fabian said, the expectation of any G2 roster is effectively going to be compared to the roster he was in.
Yeah.
The Dynasty roster. It probably doesn't help that Alamau's come out and said, we want to be a Dynasty as well. So, and I
it's
think
a
that's
cursed thing.
where we're basing them on, right?
Yeah, you cannot say you want to be a dynasty. It doesn't matter what team you are, unless you are already a dynasty. You cannot say you want to be a dynasty because it just leads to bad things. It just leads to, if you want to curse, you want to curse. Hey, remember when they were talking about bringing Ying? And Milos said, what happens if Ying is banned? Yeah, she's banned. That's
Yeah. She's so good. I mean, Fabian went on a whole spiel about how Ying could be used in about 17 different locations.
Uh-huh.
That's the exact reason that you would ban her away. We're seeing a lot of teams re-pick into her as well, which I think is why her ban rate has started to go up because they don't want to have to play a Warden because of re-pick.
And with the Finker alongside, 2 LMGs. 2 LMGs taken off the board. Well, that's that's a statistic at the minute right now. And obviously, it's probably with the guys, I think, more removal of grenades. Grenades are a consistent problem. Grenades are in a very powerful spot in our meta right now. They are a bit of a drive. And if you've missed these two teams playing so far, well, okay. We've come in with a little bit of saying there's expectations about G2. But they matched a lot of them in the opening couple of Playdays. They are a very good roster that's still finding their feet.
Yeah, and I think that's it, is people do forget that G2 have changed 3 players, right? So they've now got in, the only existing players are Virtue and Citizen, probably the 2 players that you would have kept from the previous roster.
Yeah.
And they've brought in 3 new players, and that completely shifts the team's dynamics. It shifts who plays what, it shifts which maps they like, which sites they like, how they want to play, their whole identity. So whilst we are judging them on a kind of dynasty, they are a new team, and we do have to kind of reference that, and the context of that is important.
So, if you also missed it with G2, they played Oregon already. We don't have an LFO from this split, but we do have a G2, and it was their first loss against outsiders, and it was a bit of a surprise loss. Everyone had high expectations of G2 based on how they were playing, and based on how outsiders were playing, sure, at this point in the day, now that they're sort of punching towards the top of the board, and that's sort of segmented them and separated them. But at the time, G2 were unbeaten, and they were one of the few unbeaten teams going into that actual Playday. So we're going to get a good experience of growth, and there it is, Rise. He's met with a little bit of a citizen hello.
That is a very early C4, and a very peculiar position for a C4 to actually go off as P4. He does find a quick one right back onto Doki. We're seeing G2 still try that innovative strat of try and roam and try and waste time, top floor, mid floor, and then try and get back to the bottom floor.
Well, here it is. Mowgli's trying to put some pressure here underneath the site itself. Or, in fact, no, above the site itself. It was Storms, and they swapped over to Laundry. I always take my notes last. Virtue is going to be the body that tries to buff them back here. Floating around on the door itself. They're going to see and spot a body sooner than later. But again, G2, they're playing this hyper-aggressive game. They're setting themselves up very forward, very confrontational. The drop on the already open hatch, and they pull themselves back. But that's why LFO are playing it a little bit cautious. They were met with one C4, and they don't want to get met by another surprise player.
And we saw it in the previous game. We're going to see it here as well, which is where you drop off, and you're really trying to balance that. The attackers, they've got to drone out all of meeting. They've got to drone out T1, T2, T3, because they haven't even got to that position yet. We're seeing Prano in T3, and this is G2 trying to innovate. We saw it work really well in the previous game. It's working so far here. 4v4 with 90 seconds to go. That's a good result so far for G2.
Well, the hatches start to pop open. They're segmenting and setting themselves up for the pressure and push down towards what seems like an idea of a Laundry and a Freezer take. It's a little bit of width and a bit of a drive down onto those players in the back line. They've read that there's generally not too much of a presence here onto this door itself. There's nobody playing on that close little corner angle by the bomb chassis inside the site. You don't have anyone immediately on the far line, but look at the top of your screens. There is that rotate over the top of Attic. Brano, he's making his way slowly and steadily round. P4 might be the one that meets him. Does he know he's there?
Looks like he does.
There it is, a pick up there, an important one, P4, 45 seconds, they can direct everything to the site.
I think Prano's gone a little bit early there. The big flanks come off with about 20 seconds to go. That's when you can have the most damage. He's gone at about 50, and they've been able to hold an attacker waiting to look at him.
Well, there's Citizen biting back, a well-played smoke, and Alamau doubles it down with the gun itself. Bibu barrels back, he's inside, but he's also inside a smoke. He's a bit locked out in 25 seconds. Shinka is the only other bit of extra support here. A 2 versus 2, and a bit of a spray over the top, but Citizen, he's buried in behind the soft wall. They don't know entirely where he is. Shinka takes a little bit of the fire damage, 15 seconds, and all of that utility is popped and ready to go. There it is, up the top. There's a quad, and Citizen opens it up as he means to continue.
The best thing about G2, and the one thing that I love about this roster, is when they focus on the team play, and once that's on lock, the fact that anybody on this roster can pop up and get a 4K like Citizen's just done is scary.
I think that was always the sign on the line, wasn't it? As soon as the contracts were all put down, as soon as the roster was announced, and as soon as you sort of look at this, you go, okay, well, how do these players perform? It's like, well, we have this data of them being on their own rosters in their own time exceptional and phenomenal. But you know, it's not the first time G2 sort of had that. Here, it's got a bit of a different energy, and I think that there was almost a little bit of we're going to be great swagger before, proven otherwise. This time, I think players like Citizen, players like Doki, we're getting a little bit more of a taste of they know they've got fight in them, and they know they've got to try and fight their way back up to those expectations.
The difference for me is if you look at the last year, particularly on G2, you could very easily argue Citizen has had to carry that roster on his back. If you look at the stats, their stats actually look very similar. But even in that round, Citizen gets a 4K, but I wouldn't say he carried that round. No. And I think that's the difference, is the rest of the squad around them are still stepping up.
It's also, I think it's the positioning as well. Is Citizen in that position on a previous G2 hold, he would have been on the other side of the map. He would have been doing other things.
On a Malusi or something
this
like that.
time, I think that there's more of a... It's like a trust and a responsibility. Everyone can pull back. Everyone can put the pressure on when they need to. And Doki, well, he started up here, but suffering a little scrap and a scrape. He's going to pull himself back. He's trying to meet LFO on that approach once again. But LFO, as I said, they are a very good, very aggressive team. They know how to meet that, and you can see the pressures coming in from the bottom of the tower. There's bodies around small tower, and by the looks of it, the main entrance as well, at least a single one there. It's a very spread out, but we're getting in the building approach here.
One thing I want to see from Rise, particularly on LFO, is less entry deaths. He's playing this very important operator of Sledge. He plays soft destruction on attack and he plays hard support on defense. And again, he's being punished. That's 2 entry deaths. I think he was already minus 11 on the entries coming into today. And it's a big problem that LFO have got, is he's not their entry player, but he is constantly dying in the entry engagements.
Well, Doki goes down. They're trying to drone him out and get that read on where he is. So Citizen can't quite go for the pickup because, as we said, it's a multifaceted approach here. You have that body. Just going to prep that grenade through and confirm the kill there against Doki. Unfortunately, no. He's able to crawl, but not out of the way of the second one. 2 grenades to confirm that kill. It gives you the safety to make sure you don't get swung on by Citizen, who they know is playing in that close quarters, but he still swings on you. Citizen into Zulu. He's already 6-0. And we haven't even finished round 2.
Yeah, that Valcam there, that we saw him throw it out right early round, has just netted him a kill. Doki straight on the cameras, presumably a yellow pin comes straight out, a pre-fire from Citizen, and a freebie. Keeps them in a 4v3 advantage, and nobody's got actually anywhere near sight. Mowgli had already used his nades as well. There's going to be no nades from below from him. The Sledge is already dead, so it's only on P4 if you're going to get any nade kills, as it looks like he will actually get one on Soprano. The nade goes out, only gets the injure though.
Only gets the injure, but they've tried to hop in. There's the C4 Citizen. Reverse James Bond meme in probably a record time. They're trying to find the fight and just get to the side and the sliver Bibu. He's got 3 more players to try and contend with, and they still have vertical control, but Citizen doesn't need it. 2 rounds, 2 quad kills.
I normally write down the big plays, and I've got a little section on my thing. And normally I write the round, then the player that's done it, whereas I've just gone, Citizen, quad kill, round 1, +2. But once again, it's not like he's had to carry them. It's just he's been the one that's been enabled from this roster.
Exactly. And that's the important thing, is it's always the statement, it's always the thing that's repeated over and over, is it's not just about the kills that you get, but it's about the work that the team does around you to allow those kills, to pull those kills together. That was all communication. That was calls. That was a tightness and an energy of a roster that knows it has to meet the pace. So whether it's because they've lost the previous 2 engagements, and whether it's because they've lost the previous year based on what they were exposed to do with Citizen, either way, this performance in these opening 2 rounds, sure, he's 8-0, but that's because, as you said, of the work of the rest of the roster.
I can't even do maths, but if this was a 7-0 and he gets a 4K in every round, we're talking about a lot of kills.
7 times
that would
4.
be 28. There we go. Yeah, it's a great start. And G2, realistically, they needed a reaction, because Playday, after Playday 1 and 2, the expectations of this roster was, oh my god, they're living up to it. And then Playday 3 and 4 happened, and it's like, oh my god, they're falling apart. So they need to have a big reaction. And this is a big game for them, because this is a rival that, realistically, is in amongst the rat race that's challenging them for top 4. Because LFO, they've looked good themselves.
Now, if we're going to talk about entry statistics, Doki for me is one to also keep an eye on based on the performance in the previous Playday. He opened up in a similar way to Rise so far. He kept on being caught out, and here he's been the opening death twice in a row as well. He hasn't quite been able to get himself into the groove. Happening on his defense, where they still have the rest of the site and the roster to build behind, it might be something that works a little bit in his favor, because he did warm into the game against Heroic before, but when he was trying to be that point of contact, if he's not quite there yet, might be something where, as he said on social media afterwards, he wasn't quite able to just get in. He was in a bit of a funk here. Citizen is in the opposite. He is the funkiest man in Siege.
He's feeling it.
He is feeling these vibes.
Yeah, and I think realistically from LFO, it looks like we've got a meeting side take coming out. So for kitchen dining, normally you'll see teams take control of small tower, play vertically, go for dining side. That's the 1, 2, 3 steps approach. Whereas LFO, looks like they're going to go for meeting specifically to aim for a plant behind the little half wall in kitchen themselves. You've seen Shinka, Bibu, Mowgli. They're all kind of congregating over that side of the map.
Now, on your tertiary side, especially on this map, as it's put, it's not expected to win. It's not the easiest one to sort of lock in, but you're looking at towards the 4-2. If you can just try and shake that up here, which they're set up to, it becomes something where maybe you can drive this home much quicker. You can see they have the pressure and presence underneath in the bottom of the site. Alamao's just being held at the top of the stairs. Doki, he's able to not quite get that connection there, but the pings are coming through. A heavy drone game, and there's Bibu with a bit of a read here. He's going to get pressured from both sides. He's able to not really get anything there. Mowgli locks it in. I thought that was a down on the opposite side, but everything apart from a single connection leaves that in a tricky situation. The EU1D goes. It controls. Make sure that 7 seconds isn't a bit of a refrag and a return here, and Citizen's going to have to start doing some magic.
It's a great assessment from LFO to know that there's 2 players below and just have a drone at Bibu's feet. Gets in, gets 2 kills. It doesn't establish map control. They're lacking a little bit on map control, but they've got a 5v3, which means if push comes to shove, they can just force it with numbers.
Shinka's going to see if he can try and stick it behind the wash machine. Citizens forced off the side of Zulu, but Virtue does a bit of work, and Mowgli does it back. Virtue with the double cannot quite get the full connection, but stops the plant. They weren't able to actually get it down to the ground in time because they don't have the verticality. They're going to pull themselves back in. The work of the Echo and Prano on the far side as well as being that bit of a drive, whether that was what stopped the plant or not. Either way, Prano, he's off the drone for a second. He's going to see if he can try and drive himself in. Another swing, another call, and the Echo is causing so many problems. They get it down, and they just catch one more. It's a 2 versus 2. It's a 1 versus 2. Prano, all that's left now. They're finally able to get the man on the second story. They have themselves spread out. One in the little server connection there, just past the rotate, keeping himself safe, waiting for the audio. The other, he's on long, he's on deep. It's a tricky angle to try and swing to because they're not being fed, and now he's upstairs. This is as good as an LFO round. It would really take something astronomical here, but I think even Prano is aware of it. But the fight back from here to be in a 5 versus 3 and almost pull it back, I mean, that's it. That's that G2 effect.
It was good resilience, and like we say, that's what G2 have got. They've got players that can just go big. The Echo drone denied the plant. Virtue managed to get a couple of kills from it. But like I say, LFO, they got themselves in that position where they knew that they could push deep, and that's what we saw. They weren't trying to plant behind the box because they knew Virtue had the vertical. They pushed deep because worst case scenario, there was only Prano, and they knew that they had 3 people to refrag Prano if he appeared from somewhere. Nice intelligence, and it all stems off the back of Bibu being the one to take the initiative and get those 2 kills in the basement.
That's it. If you had one other body that was different, then maybe it would have been a different story. But LFO, you have one. Can you try and build behind it? You're still missing a couple of big players getting into the game itself, but maybe that is a little bit of that energy, especially the lead on behind Bibu. If he can try and find a little bit more of that entrance, regardless of the hard destruction role that he's on, that might be some of that energy, some of that experience that you need. Here on the side of G2, you know, it's still an astronomical performance by Citizen, but at the same time, as you said, it's only time for them to start to warm up. And here, I think, back on a site they've already won, and back on a tougher side, we'll get a little bit more of that metric.
Just clocked a drone there from Bibu that was in the shower hallway. And he knows then, the drone, as you see, you just see it on top of your screen there, they know that the complete dining side is completely clear and they can push in a little bit faster. They will also know that Prano and Doki both went upstairs. So they've got an idea of what they're already dealing with. They've seen this defense once before. They know there's 2 people upstairs, and it'll allow them to get in and challenge it quicker.
There's that huge pace, and here's a grenade that's going to come underneath the feet of Prano. Doesn't get the full connection, but he knows he's got to get out of there. Watching the bottom of the stairs as well. P4 has eyes, and they didn't get the full thread there, but Mowgli, he cannot stick around. Has to pay attention towards the fact that there's other players. There was a little bit more drone movement, a little bit of Virtue movement as well. Picks up a kill there, leads himself back into security. Doki gets Rise as well. Once again, they're losing that Sledge, who hasn't been able to get his teeth in all those grenades in at all, and we know how effective they can be.
And that's a 5v3 for G2. Even though the LFO had the information, G2 have managed to front it up and get 2 massive kills. They can all just fall off now because the same thing's occurring, is the LFO now need to re-drone the rest of the map, probably spend another minute, a minute 10, 15, working out where people are, and then try and pick somewhere to go from. But they've lost 4 sets of nades. There's no more nades. There's only a Flores that can do any real destruction here.
Wow, and the single loose player, Prano, he went for a rotate before and it didn't quite come together, but here, P4 is going to see if he can try and cut himself into the site with a little bit of secrecy, because if they go for an all-out war, that blow-for-blow body is always going to work into the favor of the team with more players. There's an easy pick up a man on the camera. He's in the site, finds a second. P4 goes for a third. He's going massive. Inside, buried and took the E-box hatch. Prano, he is now entirely out of the water. Virtue has to try and bite his way back, gets the plant and pulls himself back. A huge take, but there's still so much time, and there's still a player loose. Prano, he's going to have to try and find his way back into a back fight. Bibu's looking for the swing and gets it. Virtue's caught over the side of it, and there's a little bit of a hot drop, a little bit of a weight on the freezer side. Takes it, finds a little bit of ground. They've dropped a drone, and there it is. Bibu back off the work of P4 and LFO. They got a little bit of spice back.
How to lose a round by G2 Esports is what we've just seen there. P4 took some massive risk. And my good friend Harry Demo Dempster, his famous saying is you make the play or the play makes you. Well, P4 made the play. No, he had 2 Twitch drones in pocket, no information, had no idea what he was dropping into, drops E-box hatch, gets 3 kills and opens up his team. But what I liked about it was the coordination as well of the rest of LFO to push down Laundry at exactly the same time. And they got in sight, and then they had a 3v2 from sight. I don't know how G2 have possibly lost that, other than P4 has just gone absolutely nuclear there.
I mean, that's the thing. So the first skill,
Two
he
switch drones in pocket.
yeah, catches a body that's on the camera. At this point, the call comes out. Whether the close player on the left was on camera or not, that is an important one against Alamau. At this point, Goyo, he was being pressured by Bibu on the far side. I'm not sure how close Bibu had got to that. But it is a heck of a play. And obviously our eyes were on the movement there of P4. But we have to take into consideration, for Bibu to be where he is, there's not a quick route through unless they're sort of making a lot of noise with the Habana onto the hatch itself. It was a great little bout of play by LFO. And that's that thing with P4 calling the shots and with the gun skill of Bibu, we said it's going to be important.
That's the bit where Siege becomes an FPS rather than...
Yeah.
There's a lot of strategy in Siege, and a lot of the time, I'd say strategy wins overall. When all things are equal, the team with the better strategy, but time to time, you can lose around strategically, and you can just pop off and get free kills. That's exactly what we saw out of P4, though.
Can it be a little bit more of that fuel, a little bit more of the fire? Sure, a couple of the LFO players haven't quite been able to get themselves into the game yet, but I mean, the more and more it starts to happen with a few of them, the more and more that distance between them and G2 players that haven't quite been able to fully get in might become a little bit more apparent. As I said, you're expecting on this sort of sturdiness of the sites with these teams, probably a bit of a 4-2 split here, but I guess with the aggression that we've seen flirted with by both of them, it might be a little bit more of an even half. Doki takes a drop down, there's continual pings. The intel game here from LFO has been so consistent in finding out locations and finding out pressure. It's just making sure they don't get caught by that single loose thread.
They've got faster and faster as well in their approach of the map. They've taken Armory this time rather than going in from the west side. They've forced Doki back downstairs very quickly. There's no G2 players lingering. Citizens tried a little C4, popped a Goyo canister, a hot pocket there just to enable safe passage back to site. But LFO now have a 5v5 and a minute 40 to work with to set up their execute.
Now, G2, they've pulled themselves back here. There's nobody loose this time. Prano is not going to go for his wide roam game. He's going to see if he can keep himself locked in on blue. They know that they were punished by a single player going for an absolute Hail Mary throw, and sometimes you make the catch. And the catch brings you back into the 2 versus 2. The drop and the pressure, hot droned around, and the Grenade's just going to see if they can try and catch any of that Malushi. The Banshee and Virtue, well, he's eyeing up the idea of biting back in, but catches a drone, which is probably just important with LFO's drive. Here's a second one.
I think there's a minute to go and LFO really have a choice now. Which side are you going for? Are you going to go for blue and E-Box Hatch, or are you going to go for laundry and freezer? Once they decide, they need to be active because time can dwindle down fast on this particular site. They've got rid of the Goyo hot pockets, which is, I like this, from the Flores drone. Get rid of them because they can really come into factor late on and really be very disruptive.
Bibu going lower and lower with those to make sure they don't get caught out by the wide swing of Prano, but this is all time that's being wasted. 40 seconds and Virtue digs into Harry Potter. You still have a bit of a hold of Alamau here, setting off some fires inside Freezer, but it's the drive on the opposite side. Rise finally finds his first and looks to see if he can swing for a second on the connecting wall. It's a hot drop onto E-Box. Battle back, Citizen and Doki find one apiece, and Bibu is stuck behind the side of a hot pocket. It's a swing and a reveal with that bulletproof camera that's making sure that every single movement on this side of the entirety of the push is now stopped as they're able to pop it out, but 15 seconds. They do not have elbow, they do not have a Blair on pillar anymore, and they got to see if they can just try and drive in. Not the right time to be looking at a Flores drone and remote control because you are all that's left, and not for very long. Doki is the man of this moment. A little bit of energy back here from G2. Can they re-establish control before the turn of the half?
One key thing in that round, we saw the Flores drones come in. It tried to get rid of that bulletproof camera, but it failed. It got shot out from highway, which meant that the dead G2 player, I think it was Virtue who died first, he was able to just sit and call from that camera, and Doki's played within about 2 square meters and managed to have an info on all 4 remaining players of LFO, got the kills, swept up, and it's what we said can happen on this roster. Citizens had 2 4Ks, Doki's on another already.
And then also there was P4 with the 3K going huge. There's only been one round where there hasn't been a player that has gone massive. And to be fair, actually, I'm not entirely sure what BB was able to pull off in the 3rd round. I know he was one of the only ones that was sort of pushing higher figures here, and he still is. I think that's the thing right now is he started to drive. Rise has broken the deadlock. He's broken the seal.
Finally,
and he's found one. But again, as an LFO, if you're an LFO fan and you're looking for them here, they need to try and build behind it. Citizen, he hasn't quite been the same as he was in the opening 2 rounds.
Yeah, he's only 9-2.
He's only 9-2. But the important part of that is it's 9-2, and that ties into the fact that since then he's only really had 1 extra death.
True.
And, you know, it's not just about the bodies you put down, but also that survival rate here.
We've gone to Kids Dorms here, and Doki says that Citizen baits him out a lot, and it's potentially the other way around here. Citizen's running around kind of small tower dining and kitchen to try and shoot drones for Doki, who's laying on the small tower stairs. As it is, I think LFO will be going from a completely different side here. It looks like they're going to go from the armory side and try and take control of the master bedroom. With P4 potentially, as I say that, potentially just looking to kind of rat around, does go to the big window, but he's on that nook, so you'd expect maybe late on he might try and do something around the dining side.
That's it. I mean, we saw him being able to use some of the grenades to some sort of point of skill and precedence, and here that's just so much drones, so much play around. The catch there on the internal camera, they're going to leave it there and see if they can get it a little bit more recharged. They're going for a bit of this control, but LFO once again have gone for a very spread out approach. They have a couple of bodies inside attic, they have a couple of bodies now. P4's gone for the rotate away from the double window towards the big double door on the main front, and they've sort of gone, well, let's fob off big tower, let's go for a little bit of this armory classic attic take.
Yeah, and we've seen G2 there playing a little bit different as to how you'd normally see. You usually see teams try an impact trick. G2 they've got a wall open into master bedroom. They've got the shield in trophy. They're trying to hold that off, but the problem with playing that shield in trophy is having the wall open. Once attic is open, there's a long line of sight, so Virtue's had to vacate that position. So it's a lot of map control vacated for G2 for realistically not too much work from the attackers.
Well, there's the use of that camera, just seeing if it can try and catch. I'm not sure if that was a game for utility, but either way, it is a little bit of a singe mark. P4, he's trying to get the swing here on that opening, you said, at the side of Trophy and Attic. You can see Bibu's putting some pressure over across the top. Rise, I think, droning them ahead. There's nobody to go for the rotate, but they have vacated. Now, there's just over a minute left. Mowgli's checking it safe before they entirely stack up. This is the longest we've had all 10 players still standing, and you assume it's about to start to come to a bit of a head here. There's a bit of a swing. They have full Attic control, pushed a little bit further back. Mowgli with a long arm grenade. They have the eyes on this side of the Kids Dorms itself. They're trying to cross off. I'm not entirely sure where they want to stick that diffuser, but Doki sticks Rise in the dirt. Another entry statistic going against him here, and that's another grenade off the board. The attempt on the swing on the window, but look at where Doki is. He is still off on the opposite side.
He can have a big flank here. He's shot him from green window because Rise was on the rappel. Mowgli can have big impact, though, from the big window because he wants to be shooting the defenders in the back as they look towards the main push.
Well, now it's Bibu that's able to bite his way through. He's inside. There's a quick drop and an important double take there. Make that 3. All across the board. It's shining up blue. G2, but 2 falls. Shinka with a double. 10 seconds in the kit in pocket. He knows one's on site, and he can't quite lock it off. G2 instead find themselves that balance and get themselves back the 4-2.
Considering LFO had a lot given to them there by the G2 setup, they allowed G2 to get away with absolute murder, and they kind of... This isn't going to mean much to non-UK people, but they kind of dilly-dallied, I think is probably the word. They didn't really do much in the mid-round. They kind of just said, you know what, we've got Attic, we've got Master Bedroom. Sure, we're happy with this until the execute comes in, but G2 all the while were just able to front that up completely.
Now, attack timeout here at the turn of the half. You don't always see this, actually. Obviously, they're in the lead, regardless
by
of the result. Yeah, by G2. G2 called it. Citizen typed it in chat. You can see, obviously, Prano's got some ideas. He wants to talk things over. And, you know, regardless of the result of a game, you never really see it just happen at the turn of the half.
I'm a big fan of it. And I think it comes back to traditional sports, that you get a half time. And when you're attacking, when you're a team, the complete focus, and it might just be a reminder of counter-analysis that they've seen. It might be, we've had the defenses, boys, here's what we got told in the counter-analysis, because it might have slipped out your brain having played for 6 rounds. So I like this idea from G2, especially if they've got some kind of plan, specific plan that they want to pull off. I'm not saying they do, but if they did, it's a really good time to use that tactical timeout and say, do you know what, boys? Here's that plan. We wanted to use the Ossa, for example. We wanted to use the Flores to get rid of this, this, and this that we've already seen from them or we've previously seen from them. I do like it. I know a lot of players don't like it because they feel it can be disruptive to the flow of the game, but I'm a big fan of it personally.
Let's see if it's something that leads them to a bit of success. LFO, they haven't got off to the best start, but they've still got the 2 rounds that you generally want to be able to get. The worry is that it's come off of a couple of big plays, especially the one on the fight down towards the bottom. So it's going to have to be something here where we get a little bit more of a spark across the board, and now they have this modicum of defense work in their favor. Now they have a little bit of a fresh mind reset. Let's see if it's something that comes together. Doki on the fuse and Prano on the Ossa. builds herself to an interesting take here, potentially.
And we said the criticism of G2 the last time they played Oregon was they did funky stuff on the defenses, but they didn't innovate whatsoever on the attack. So already seeing an Ossa, already seeing a Fuse, it kind of screams that they've got ideas that they want to implement that are non-standard. So we'll have to see what Doki in particular gets up to. Prano using that cool little trick with the Ossa shield that I love, which is where you put the Ossa shield on a barricade, on a window or a door, very quickly, pull it back off, and it completely destroys it. There's no need to punch, there's no need to shoot. I'm a big fan of that.
Well,
interaction.
Doki, I think, wanted to try and get this onto that wall there, and unfortunately for him, it is a little bit open. There's going to be a bit of grenades, a bit of pressure that pushes them back in so they can try and force their way through, but Rise is just playing either side of this angle. As soon as they try and pass, or worse, lean into a firefight, they're going to find themselves instantly met. So, before they can get true confidence, they have to do some work elsewhere. Talking of Mowgli, he's lurking himself underneath, went for a little bit of an idea there around Classroom, but instead pulled himself back onto Zulu. Citizen's going to drone ahead with that fake person, and that allows Doki that space, and that allows Doki the chance here to be stacked in, takes care of a charge, and sets himself his own.
And the Fuse charge will go off. Fuse is now an entry fragger if you ask Doki. He's going to set off the Fuse charge and then the hard reach charge as well. Just clearing out everything in games. It means nobody can play close. He's used his utility now, so he will just use that LMG. The one thing that he didn't get, though, was that Goyo hot pocket in the middle of kind of, I don't know what that area is called, but just the other side of the door that you see Prano there as he throws a smoke grenade into an ADS just behind him. That hot pocket can be crucial late round because it can deny 25 seconds of just pure fire.
That's it, and they are becoming a massive thing right now, especially because that Vector in the right hands is an absolute laser beam. And P4 is definitely oft described as the right hands. Not sure if he's popped his C4, if it's just ready to go underneath. It's 0 for 0, so it has gone off somewhere, and whether it was just that opening there, either way, it's something they can't quite use yet. The pressure's going to come from Attic. Bibu is under a little bit of threat here, but it's Citizen that opens it up, finds Rise once again, knocked off the board early. Mowgli's bouncing side to side. The smoke means he can't quite get it. They're waiting to pop that, and that was the pressure, but it's Citizen that goes down next. Here's the fight. The pings are continual, and it's a pre-fire from Bibu, takes the head of the player. G2, they're suddenly finding themselves a little bit entirely lost as they're locked out from every which way. LFO just took a moment, 5 seconds, and stepped themselves back in. We could see the pings, we could see the intel, and now we see the utility up close and personal in a first-person perspective, but it's actually all over littered the site itself. More smokes, more fire, and, well, they had the timeout before, and now they got a timeout at the end of this round just based on you cannot enter.
Wow. And here's what G2 did do. They smoked Trophy Door. Doki walked up to Trophy Walls as a fuse and tried fusing into Pit. However, he didn't account for the fact that there would be a player in there and 2 ADSs. They couldn't destroy any utility in Pit. They couldn't clear the player out. They were trying to do that in conjunction with, I'm not sure which player it was whoever was playing Maverick, I think Virtue, pushing Attic at the same time to get that map control for Virtue, and it just got completely shut down. LFO, I nearly called them Vitality. LFO, they kind of use
tough,
that.
Innit?
Yeah, it's tough. They kind of use that as a trigger point to just swing. Swung out, got the kills, 4v1. There's really nothing G2 could do. And it was maybe them trying to do a little bit too much. I do like it. I like the innovation. I like the ideas. I like what they're trying to do. But it was maybe just a bit too much, spending a minute and a half to try and clear out Pit.
Okay, G2, it was actually a good start, and then it was everything wrong after that moment. You got the entry there. Everybody else was able to step back in. But it is Oregon. It is the first site here. And as I said, the timeout talk, we're not entirely sure what the idea behind it was, but you don't always expect to be able to take what is potentially your defender's strongest site. Can you do anything here on the second? This will be one of those make or break potential rounds. Obviously, it was one of the places where you lost against LFO, but you still were able to pull that 4-2 split.
And we're seeing a similar approach coming out of LFO again with the laundry site, and we've seen it kind of 3 out of 4 teams. The only team that haven't ran a full roam on it was M&M in the previous game. In terms of today's games, the same thing as a Carrion, where you want to play the top floor, the mid floor, and delay, and then eventually fall down the meeting hatch if you can. And that's what G2, they did it so successfully on their defense. That's what they now need to pick apart. Citizen, he's going to go into dining. It's going to be more of a west clear coming out of G2 as Doki gets entry death to Mowgli there, maybe getting a little bit too aggressive at white stairs without any possibility of a refrag.
Yeah, I mean, you can see Mowgli took a huge amount of damage. They thought they could try and lead in there. I don't know if they knew that there was the second body to try and cover the retreat, but at this point, it seems like they're going to go for a full retreat. The drones are trying to whir their way around. That one's caught out on the side of Zulu. They won't get the full intel on where Rise is, but they've got themselves some control above. However, they've lost that player that opens it up, and there it is. Citizen is able to find the backside of Rise. They had too much focus on one side and forgot about the other, and this time there wasn't anyone to support that LFO player. Bibu hovering over the hatch, but is probably more than ready to take the drop when he needs to.
Yeah, and I think that's what he should have done. I think it's what Rise should have done. Once you've got that entry kill, it doesn't matter so much about the time because the attack does still need to redrone the rest of the map. Make sure you're not in any nooks or crannies. We're seeing P4, he did exactly what Prano did. It's like we're watching the same 2 rounds, but different teams on different sides. P4's up in T3, and once again, I hope he goes late. I hope he leaves it till 20, 30 seconds to go. As we're seeing from Citizen here, he doesn't know. He's pre-firing every angle. He doesn't know who's in T1, T2, T3. They're not going to have time to fully drone this out, and that gives a lot of opportunity for P4. As I say, Alamo drones it out.
Well, there's the reveal, and P4 took a second, because if he shoots it, they know he's up there anyway. So at that point, you try and hope that they don't shoot it, and you can just get slipped on by, but they check their corners, and now they've got an isolating problem, but it's a problem, and that's the important thing. G2, they either have to try and drive themselves to collect it and go for the fight, because P4 is not leaving. He's sticking there for as long as possible, pre-fires a C4 towards a window, suffers a bit of a spray over the top. He's blind, he's bouted, but this is a lot of utility. They still haven't confirmed the kill yet. They're spraying multiple angles, and they catch him. But that was a good 10, 15 seconds. It was a big rotate. Now they've got to try and go internally. They've got to drive themselves back round if they wanted a wider push. Well, unfortunately, you're not going to get it. It's going to turn into one of those hot, quick, and heavy situations. 20 seconds. Bibu's back on the side of Pillar. They're pinging out all the Vulcans. They know where these hot pockets are located. More drones, 15 seconds, and 5 of that's used just to get themselves set up. Mowgli and Shinka on the backside. They still have elbow control. Now they have the loss on that opening fight. Citizen somehow takes it. 5 seconds. They still got to see if they can get this stuck in. It's a 4 versus nobody, though, because they got stuck in instead. And G2 did a lot with a very little amount of time.
I've bashed Rise a lot over the course of this cast, and I do apologise, but if he'd have gone down that hatch earlier, and Bibu, we saw he stayed a little bit longer as well, but if they were both down safe early on, you saw Bibu died to a player that had dropped T-box hatch because Citizen had managed to walk all the way down to Laundry. And I think that is the big difference, was that there wasn't enough people on site late round because P4 was off site, because they had to go deal with him. There wasn't enough people on site late round, which is where Rice should have been. I think he stayed a little bit too long there, and that ultimately could have been, you know, the deciding factor between a round win and a round loss.
I think it's the terrifying thing about G2 as well, is if you're looking at the performance of this game, and all 10 of these players can put in work, and all 10 of them can have a big game, but at the minute, G2, they're having much more success on their individual gunfights. It's across the board, and sure, P4 can have a big round, Mowgli can have a big round, and Bibu, but missing that sort of link of at least a 4th person to match the fact that 4 players of G2 have been able to have these big moments. Alamau there with the driver. You can send off Alamau to go for a fight, and chances are he'll do well with it.
Yep.
And that flexibility there on that execute was sort of shown off.
We've got a blitz.
We do have a blitz.
That indicates a rush to me. That indicates Shinka is in for a very near death, potentially Bibu as well. However, why my magnets, Malusi traps, hot pockets. I don't know if G2 are just going to run straight over them or destroy them first. I don't know what's going to go on, but we do have a blitz on the board.
Well, here's the Flores drone prepped, and the one thing they don't have on that door is the mute jammer, so this should be able to at least get the hot pocket and that Banshee. Are they going to try and get the lock-in there on the door itself? Yep, the door will get popped. They'll wait briefly, and Alamau's just going to go through the fire. There's the blind, and there's the catch, and there's an open elbow, and suddenly LFO's got to come back, because look at Citizen. He's waiting to see if a rotate comes through. Alamau, he's going for an adventure inside the site. There's a bit of a trade. It's suddenly a 3 versus 2. Bibu got some important work done. Now, they've got themselves control of the pillar. They got themselves an Alamau stuck in the middle of the site itself. The blitz is going a bit wider. He's trying to bait a fight, but Doki has the cover on the planter. There is a great catch from P4! And another one. He follows it up with a swing across the board. It's a blitz versus P4. It's a laser beam, and as I said, it's the right hands, but it's tough to connect a laser with a man who has a massive hunk of metal in front of his face. There is so much time, 1:35. It is such a dangerous dance between the two over the Shikos. No, the C4 from P4. And he just takes it out.
Oh my days, what was that round? P4 proving he can just come in clutch time and time again when LFO need him. He's single-handedly won them 2 rounds now, kept them in the game, and the cover was so right, the plant spot was so wrong. The only place that P4 could have been was Freezer. And when you know there's a player in Freezer, you don't push in deep on that plant. You plant on the doorway itself so that the Freezer player has to expose himself to the guy that was playing Pillar. G2 choosing that one particular plant spot. If they choose any other plant spot on the entire site, they win that round. They chose the one wrong plant spot that allowed P4 that opportunity.
Once again, we find ourselves, and it's the situation I talked about at the beginning there, perfectly played and placed. That swing round to the second player is so important. Oh, it's not easy to shoot a C4. It's tougher when you're looking a blitz shield around. But it's that important thing, because even in that round, it sort of proves the point that, sure, LFO can win rounds, but again, it's off the back of these players that are able to pop off. And it's a lot less sort of multifaceted than what G2 has. It's a riskier sort of gambit, and they got to hope that they can try and slow G2's approach once again here. This
game's over right now, but for P4.
Yeah.
But for P4 winning 2 rounds single-handedly. And that's the top and bottom of it. LFO are in this game. It's 5-4. They could go on and get 3 defenses from now and win this game, but they shouldn't have won it if they do. And I think that's strategically G2 have been better. It's just one player has absolutely just popped off. As we go back to Dom, so this was, again, G2 trying to do something funky on the fuse. This time it will just be Mowgli getting rid of Doki, Citizen finding one straight back onto Bibu. We're keeping the pace nice and high as we're not going to have any interesting fuse plays going off. It's going to be more of a conventional take from G2 this time.
Yeah, they tried to go really quick there onto Armory. They hoped that nobody was paying attention, but Mowgli was obviously paying attention. What the call was, what the intel was, they sprayed through towards the plant spot. Mowgli's behind the shield. He's got a lot of safety now, and they got to try and find a way to remove that shield before they can get the drive in, but it's a huge amount of utility, and Mowgli is refusing to be moved, and Citizen, he doesn't want to overextend. Sure, he has those grenades, but he knows they'll potentially be wasted. P4, in the meantime, pops out the bottom of a window, and there's Alamau that's able to get some revenge. Again, that very important time of response, that very important return to a player. Prano wants to push up onto Mowgli here, but they're waiting for a little bit more pressure and attention to be paid here. Moves under the cover of the fire, opens up the width there with the Selma, hopes to get a swing on the far side, but they've pulled away.
And that's the key fight, and that's what I was going to peg as the key fight, was Mowgli, whether he stays alive or not. If he was punished there by G2 and they've got a 3v2 with the whole setup for them to go in and then go for a plant, it was not looking good for LFO, but he smartly backed himself off for that fight. He's making this a 3v3, and it's all up to Alamo, really. If he can get in, get some kills, and hold that top white power position, then G2 are in for a good thing.
Now, this is the moment that we really need to see those other LFO players that I've said need to start showing a bit of force to bring them back in, because Bibu and P4, they're both unfortunately off the board, and Mowgli's had some big plays, sure, but it's Shinker and Rise that my eyes are firmly attached to. Prano, Alamau, and Citizen, they're going to see if they can try and be that final pushover. They found themselves slowly stalling and baiting a bit of utility, but it's happening a good 30 seconds earlier than it was before. They're still locked in and able to start trying to unlock some of these harder walls. There's a bit of a swing here. Alamau's trying to find an angle up through what he opened before. Rise suffers, but is able to keep himself alive there, and more of a pre-fire, more of a smoke canister, 20 seconds, and that is every single smoke canister used at this point. There's still a little bit to try and keep them at bay, but where are they going to go? Through Mowgli. There's one more off the board. It's a 3 versus 2 situation, but barely any time. They've got to go aggro, and there it is. Citizen swings round, Alamau gets Rise, and G2 push themselves onto map point.
And I think when you need to, G2 know how to play that quote-unquote proper siege. One thing G2 did excellently throughout that round was the refrag game. LFO managed to get the advantage a couple of times with the first kills on G2. Instantly retraded. Citizen. Alamo got the instant trade on P4 on the run out. And then ultimately, you even saw it Citizen there at the end when he pushed through into pit. That was an instant refrag onto the player that had peaked Prano on the breach. And I really like that from G2 because they know that they can play this eccentric style of siege. But when push comes to shove, if they just need a round to get onto match point, they can play around exactly like that.
Take time out LFO, because if you got it, may as well use it. They have lost the chance to get a full 3 points, but there is still the potential of fighting for 2 or 1, which obviously G2 have already guaranteed themselves. And we always have to remember that although this hasn't been the best day at the office for LFO, they are a good team, and they've proven that this split as well. That's why the league is still so close. Is every single precious point, every single moment matters so much, especially as G2's come off the back of 2 losses. Now, this is their chance to really sort of try and bite their way back in the fight towards the top, but it's the same sort of story here for LFO, who have had a little bit of upsy downsies recently.
Yeah, and I think even if they lose this, they're still going to be on 7 points. They're still in and around Secret and Na'Vi and potentially Rogue outsiders as well. So it's not the end of the world should they lose this. They can still make a push for the top 4. I think they've got the quality. I think they've just been a little bit lacking recently, individually, that is. And it's the same coming out here. Shinka's having a rough day at the office. Rise is having a rough day at the office. P4 and Bibu, and even Mowgli's having a rough day at the office. Bibu and P4 have been a good kind of shining lights. And I think it just relies on, they're obviously at the top, but it relies on some of these players down the bottom getting closer to the middle, operating in that middle ground. Even if Rise here is on a 6 and 10, and Shinka's on a 5 and 9, those couple of kills could have just been the difference, especially in that last round where it came down to 2v1.
That's it, and that's it entirely. As I said, it was going to be an important round to get an idea, because that was that moment for those couple of players who haven't quite been able to get a full bite into a chance at a round. It didn't quite come together, and it's always that frustration. It's always that sort of thing that pulls at you and keeps sort of talking in the back of your head. Here, P4. He's once again going with a little bit of an attitude here towards the side of Showers. They have those internal Valkyrie cams, which were used so well by Citizen before, but there's also the Nook that's on the board in the pocket of Alaman.
Yeah, and that's it's obviously a direct counter, but Alamal's playing very for himself. You saw that there was a drone already set up in the Showers hallway for him. He had his own drone as well, and therefore he's just been able to clear this whole west side of the building and enter the building unknown, not seen by any Valkyrie cameras. Finds one, but will get refragged. So not too bad. We've traded a Nook for a Jaeger there. Overall, I think LFO are actually the ones that are happier with it, even if they are wondering how it's happened.
Rise, he's able to find a body there, gets a bit of instant revenge. He's under a bout of pressure. They're going to make sure they remove all the utility they can, but it's Doki that cuts him off on the pass. And it's always sort of that thing to mention. As I said, Doki was suffering on the entrance, but you look at how he's responded in the rounds that he's alive, and that's that difference in that player. That's that difference of that sort of popping off that unfortunately we haven't been able to get from Rise, who's also been in a similar unfortunate situation where the rounds where Doki is alive, he makes good use of it, which he wasn't able to on the previous Playday against Heroic. P4, still loose, still wide, still around small tower as the blue bodies of G2 thread themselves. It's 4 versus 3, and there's still a minute 30. It's time for him to sit and wait as they find themselves on this, the unfortunate of the tertiary sites.
P4's in actually a mega position here, because the way that G2 are setting up, they're doing the vertical above kitchen. It looks like they're going to play eventually for a kitchen hatch drop. Now, P4 is presumably not on drones, and he's over on the west side of the building. If he doesn't get spotted, he can have a big flank and a big impact round. And it's all about, realistically, how disciplined is Virtue going to be with this particular drone here, which is why we're watching a drone with a minute to go. Will he spot out P4? It looks... Oh, did he? I don't think he did. I don't think he did, and P4 gets an absolute freebie from that, and now he's a problem that G2 have to go and deal with if they want to execute this attack.
Now, they've done this problem solving before, but last time they did it, it was on a different site. It was a man isolated at the top of a tower, and they had the body advantage. And here, well, they don't, and it's starting to bite them. P4, he bites a second. Doki goes down, and he's starting to do the thing that's won them a couple of rounds before, but for a third time, a spray down the back of Shower. A little bit of support that comes through. Prano catches him on the swing round, puts it back into a 2 versus 2, but another player did make their way over to support them, and you're still looking at Shinka with 2 smokes in pocket. Depending on where this plant goes down, they might still have the chance to rebuff it. It's long throws, long arms, and there's both of them used to cover both entrances there, and you can put that shield down, Prano, but you've still got the cover, you've still got the support. He's going to see if he can just try and blaze it, bait out a little bit of that smoke canister. Barely any time. It's going to turn into a 2 versus 1 in a post-plant situation. The important take goes against them. It is now Prano versus the world. Has to try and stick F, and once again, there was that play, that moment, and that swing round from the pocket of P4. A double kill to define a round.
Third round. That's the third round. P4 has made a play that's directly resulted in a round win. Sensational stuff from him. Even though he died, what it allowed, he obviously got double kill. So he's taken 2 G2 members off the board. That's fantastic. Wasted a bit more time. Eventually got traded out by Prano. That time that G2 spent looking for P4 allowed Bibu and allowed, I can't remember who else it was, I think it was Shinka, to then just front up the defense, to front up the attack, get those smokes in towards kitchen, relocate. We saw Bibu go up to top of Freezer stairs ultimately, which is where that ending kill came from. Really nice stuff from P4. He's keeping his team in this one.
Can he do it one more time? This was a site where he was able to perform a little bit of P4 French magic on the attack, but the defense was where they found themselves, P falling a little bit short. They're going to set themselves up here to try and pull themselves into OT and pull at least a point from this engagement. But still, LFO, they know how close this has been. They know that it's taking these little Cinderella story moments for them to even have a chance at fighting for this. If there was ever a time to connect the dots, you know, G2 are going to do their best to scribble all over that notebook, throw it out the window, and give themselves 3 points.
They've got to. I mean, if G2 don't end up winning this game, if we go to overtime and G2 end up losing, they're going to be...
Oh, fuming.
Fuming. Rooving?
Ruing? That's not a word.
Ruining the day?
Ruining the day.
Yeah. Don't know.
Grooving.
Grooving, fuming.
If they win, they might be grooving.
I don't know. Anyway, G2 will be very upset if they lose this game. That's all I'm going to go with. Because strategically, they've won it, as I say, but for P4 going off. And that Flourish Drone in early, once again from Alamo, will get rid of the Melusi Trap, will get rid of the Hot Pocket, and allow G2 late round, should they want to go to blue. They've not got to deal with any utility now. It's gone within 30 seconds.
No blitz this time. That is a difference. We're going back to that classical idea of siege, at least with the modern twist of so they're going to see if they can try and bring themselves in for a more traditional take, because they know that when they play that, well, they can play it very, very well. And sure, the blitz almost worked, but it didn't work. And when things don't work, you got to change them off. Here, Doki's going to just quickly pop open that door. There is a player just at the bottom of the freezer stairs, or at least there was, if they've moved themselves off. Well, they're going to get the reveal. It's P4, the terror that he is playing now a little bit further back with that locker to swing around.
We're seeing a much more reserved G2 now. A G2 that's almost like, you know, when they were in the lead, when they had the blitz, they were having a lot of fun. It, like you say, it didn't work, but it was highly effective, the blitz in particular. Now they're trying to play a very traditional round, work out the utility, try and play for picks. Now, the big worry with a traditional round on this particular site is time, because it takes so long to clear the map, to clear the hatches, to choose a side that you want to go down, and then start burning for the power positions to then nade out or clear out the power positions. It takes so much time. So G2, they need to be fast. And P4, he will peek one and get away with his life. Citizen goes off the board, and that's huge for LFO.
Oh, that was just a bit of siege time in there. P4, I don't even know if he had any intel, but he swung back and pre-fired the angle that Citizen thought he had. He expected to find P4 a couple of steps further away, and that difference, that angle, that inch of a crosshair is blood and a bit of body on the floor. P4, a huge early removal. He's still driving this game. More pressure onto the backside. They have just under a minute left. They're setting themselves up some flank drones to make sure there's not going to be a catch here, but all of the LFO players, well, they're in that perfect position. As you said, it takes a lot to clear this site if you're going for the full clear, and that's the danger. That's the risk now is, well, that's the game LFO are playing. No loose players.
And it's cool having an Ossa, but realistically, what are you going to do? Because you need to clear the positions out. You need to be the protagonist. As we're seeing Prano take a lot of damage doing just that. It's going to come down to a hatch drop and ultimately a big flurry of kills.
Well, P4 is that flurry. Mowgli gets one of his own. Spray onto the backside. Virtue at least takes care of that player that has done so much. The burn of the flashes on the close side. They're removing all the utility that they can. Pop it so it doesn't actually pop off. You're looking at the time with only 10 seconds. A blind to drop into E-Box. Virtue gets 2 more. He's almost able to drive himself all the way home, but pulling themselves back in. Prano can't get the connection. There's a bulletproof camera and a swing from Shinka. We are somehow going to OT.
I'm gobsmacked. I don't know what's gone on in what P4's hit for breakfast today. Maybe lunch, maybe dinner. I have no idea. But whatever it is, keep on eating it, because he's having such big impacts in all of these rounds. When LFO are winning rounds, he is doing well for them. He is creating good things, making things happen. LFO get the defense in overtime as well. Obviously, with the way the map veto works, LFO had to start on the attack. Looked a little bit shaky. A little bit more shaky once they got into the defense until these last couple of rounds. Now, they've settled themselves in. They can just do that same exact defense again and be looking at match point.
Well, you can see a bit of frustration there on the faces of G2. They're still in the game, and they're still at least smiling, but it was that sort of sigh of it should have been ours, and it wasn't. And as you said, regardless of how this game goes at this point, they'll know that, and that is that sort of difference.
It's a drop to point.
Yep.
They're not going to, no team's going to get the full 3 points. Strategically, it's what G2 deserve, but in the FPS kind of world of it, it isn't.
Nope, that's it. And you know, it's these problems that have sort of kept themselves going. It's the work of obviously primarily P4, but Bibu and Mowgli have kept at least some of the pace. Shinka and Rise, they've had a couple of bites. Shinka, obviously most recently, but still, It's usually been off the back of the work already done by those big Rome players here. Can they try and find that little bit extra, push themselves over the edge? They've been able to scrape themselves through here, but suddenly they might have a bout of energy. They're still rolling on the defense. They're back down on the same site, and they're playing it in the same way. Everybody is back down. They know they want to meet them 5-on-5.
And I think this is where G2 need to step up. They know what defense they're going up against. They know there's no roam. The pre-placed drone should have been good enough to know it's not a roam. They tried roaming twice. They nearly lost it twice. Now they've turtled. It's just worked for them. They'll probably turtle again, which means I'm looking at Doki. I'm looking at Citizen. Be faster, but don't be too fast. Don't get too far in front of the drones. We're seeing them want to look for a nade. It's going to be an impact and a nade. Hopefully get rid of P4, bounce it down the stairs. Only does damage to Citizen, so that didn't work.
Even
I think he naded himself there. I'm not sure what exactly happened. It was a nice idea, because they had an idea P4 would play the stairs. But obviously it's not paid off. But they've got the map control faster. 2 minutes, they've got the whole of the middle floor, can start working the hatches, and then can start actually looking to clear out people out of power positions with nades, with utility.
Yeah, I think even he was a bit confused. Obviously, you'll have to see back for the timings.
I wonder if it just bounced back.
It might have just bounced in an unfortunate way, and obviously when you're playing online, there's always going to be that little bit of a disconnect between when things happen and when things happen. Here, though, still, it's a bit of a missed opportunity. P4 has seen the danger that comes through, and Citizen's taken a face of it. He's going to be slightly scratched for the next engagement, but you're aiming for heads anyway, and you know he's a player that can definitely hit him. Just going to see if he can try and still beat that threat, that bout, that pressure. It's coming across multiple sides. They're making sure they've got some clarity here across the potential of a freezer and laundry, as well as the hatch. Before, they were heavily sort of focused on one take. One take was dangerous.
And it's all about whether they get rid of them. Doki's going to use potentially a little bit of sound to cover a drop here, and maybe not, just clearing utility. And they know that there'll be one player playing in Shaiko / in blue, one player pillar, one player highway, and it's just about how they can strategically unfold them and create those gunfights in G2's favour. They've got one guy on the laundry hatch and one guy looking freezer as well. So it's going to be a very spread out take here for G2 that's completely going to rely on whether they win their one gunfight that each player will eventually get.
Well, this is the thing I talked about them being able to do, and when they can try and swing it, Mowgli wants to actually lean into the first fight, but suffers against some of the scratch of his own smoke player. 30 seconds, G2, and you've done it at the last death drop before, but now's the time to really hit the ground. Another smoke canister. Shinka is doing the support work he needs to, and Rise is going hunting. He's able to take the fight early. There's a swing round, but they drop the hatch at the same time. Citizen takes P4. The pressure's on the site, and Shinka bounces way back in. A cold kit and colder bodies as suddenly G2's falling across the board. A 3 versus 2. Virtue, he's locked outside by the smoke canister. They're able to relock elbow. Alamau has to do a bit of work inside, gets the pick onto the freezer side. There's one above E-Box. There's one on the entrance there of the loose player. They can't quite get the full way through. They're trying to find a kill. Now they've got the kit. They're going to just hold F. And now can they keep it covered? Virtue gets the catch. There's a big glove and a big player caught off. He's going for the planter. He's able to get it down the last second at 1 versus 1. Mowgli spraying through the hot pings from the bulletproof camera. They know where he's gone. They know where he's going, but he has barely any health either side. A quick reload, a second in a pocket and a rotate round on the still free ping there. It's still coming through with Red, and he's doing his best to keep a bit of a distance. Virtue, he's pre-firing the angles. Neither of them has the bullets. Virtue doesn't have the health, and there is the round. Mowgli is the one that takes this LFO one.
Rise's face is exactly how I feel. What the hell just happened there? I was wondering why Alamo was pushing through for the kill. Diffuser, they had sight. In the end, he gets the plant down. And it all comes down to a 1v1 and who can hold the nerve. And also, crucially, who's got the information. That bulletproof cam that we said was so good from G2, well, LFO, they went and used it. They've just won a round off the back of it. And breathe. 7-6.
Remember when you came to me at the start of this game, you said, I don't know if I'm going to do this, you know, because it's going to be a banger.
Yep.
So don't worry about it. You were correct. Your analysis of whether this would be a banger or not. But the thing is, it's an unexpected banger because it's not like they're trading blows round after round. It's just LFO or a couple players on the team refuse to die, refuse to step themselves back. I'm happy to see Shinka starting to show up a little bit more. Rise, he's able to get his third
He got that
kill.
big entry.
And that's it, and that's the play. And to be fair, Shinka, you know, he's playing the support role. It's not always about the numbers, but the positioning. It wasn't great earlier on in the game, and that reflected in how things here. But the play on the smoke canisters, it's been getting sharper. The one on the previous round, where sure, P4 got a couple of bodies, but as you said, the rotation, the movement there from Shinka is starting to come alive here. They're starting to get those responses. That's a bit early.
How's that happened? How has that happened?
I feel like Citizen's going to be back.
Apparently Alamo shot it, which is what Easy's just said to us.
Through the
As he
barricade.
was doing the rotate, he
shotgun
just
it.
shot the hot pocket. I was looking for impacts. I was like, Twitch doesn't have any drones in prep phase anymore. There is a Twitch on side. We know P4 doesn't like using his Twitch drones anyway, just like dropping hatches and getting free kills. And again, that's 2 hot pockets gone already. One fortunate, another with, I think a Twitch drone's got in there that's potentially open. That maybe Mowgli. Oh, it's Mowgli with a nade. So that's 2 hot pockets. It looks like LFO might be going direct here. Rise is on the blitz as well.
Yeah, and that's sort of one of those things. It's like, okay, you can do it and it worked well. Is it going to be something that plays well against them? And to be fair, when you're 3 for 13 and haven't connected with the entrance, why not? Bring yourself a bit of energy. He's going to move in behind the smoke as he did before. No, it doesn't quite work with the same effect, Alamau, but Mowgli's at least there to instantly get the return. Look at this. They're already over the pillar. They made sure that movement counted. There's a swing round onto the site. P4 still working, gets that bulletproof. Importantly, he's going to reload, take a second and wait for the support to come from the rest of the players around. Doki kills Prano. Somehow a bit of a miscommunication, a huge misplay, and now they're really on the back foot here. P4, he's going to see if he can stick it. There's a player stuck in a box, and there is only Doki left. He's gone. G2 only pull a single point. LFO, they take the win.
How have LFO pulled off that heist then? Emmy, I have no idea. I don't think they have any idea. Big play in the end. The blitz play, yeah, sure, Rise gets killed, but who's behind him? Mowgli gets the refrag, gets the kill, and then they flood from there. P4's crouching down tower stairs, and they're inside, and it's done. And honestly, I'm surprised, you're surprised, I think the viewers surprised, and I think even LFO will be surprised at that one.
I can imagine the only people not surprised is the frustrations on the side of G2. It should have been theirs, but it wasn't. And that's the important thing about this, is all the times that it could have been locked out and the meteoric effort from a couple of LFO players, and we find ourselves here in a room of a couple of people shaking their heads on a desk that I will send you back to for now to talk it over with the rest after a quick break.